Okay, if I'm gonna do a live, it would help if I added myself to the stream, right? Okay, so give me just a second here. Okay, so this is gonna be super quick. I know it's kind of late for a lot of people who have to get up and work in the morning, such as myself. Um, so I'm going to play a song and then I'm going to talk about a few things. This isn't really going to last, hopefully, more than like 20 or 30 minutes, okay? Because I try to be mindful of everyone's time. So I hope you have had a great Wednesday as we get ready to go into Thursday and then Friday. All right, here we go. She loves to look at all the pretty lights. Homegirl with them brown eyes. Skinny jeans looking skin tight. Says she looking for a plain guy. Mama don't care and her daddy gone. Bought all the clothes all on her own. Dark chocolate is a skin tone. The only level with the lights on. Real one, big heart, sweet girl. Oh, she's a pretty girl. Definition of a Sunnyvale. Looking for her. She's a real one, big heart, sweet girl. Life got up to the black girl. Sad day for a black girl. Is what she said, baby. Hold on, don't let go. I'm laying your hand on the end. You wanna see how I feel? To be a black girl. Hold on, don't let go. I'm laying your hand on the end. You wanna see how I feel? Death of a black girl. Oh, death of a black girl. Hey. She loves her loving and she gets some guys. Don't love her to stay by her side. It's heartbreaking when you think twice. So fine she make you think twice. Love to replicate what they don't know. Make millions from originals. Homeboy said he won't stay. Leave her hanging for a fake one. But she's a real one, big heart, sweet girl. Oh, she's a pretty girl. Definition of a Sunnyvale. Looking for her. She's a real one, big heart, sweet girl. Life got up to the black girl. Sad day for a black girl. Here's what she said, baby. Hold on, don't let go. I'm laying your hand on the end. You wanna see how I feel? To be a black girl. Hold on, don't let go. I'm laying your hand on the end. You wanna see how I feel? Just of a black girl. Hold on, don't let go. I'm laying your hand on the end. You wanna see how I feel? To be a black girl. Hold on, don't let go. I'm laying your hand on the end. You wanna see how it feels? Just of a black girl. Hey, just of a black girl. Pray for the black girls. Hey, just of a black. Okay, let me cut this off and exit out of here. So I just want to talk very, very quickly about a few things because, listen, you have a lot of people, right? It's not just other Black women, but you have a lot of people who automatically assume that divestment is about taking Black men off the pedestal and putting another group of men on there, right? The truth is this: divestment is solely about Black women. And in our process of development, whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it a journey or a life path, you get to a place
where you understand that there are certain people and situations that you have to remove yourself from if you are going to be autonomous and put yourself first. And the reality that a lot of Black women will never acknowledge is that you cannot be romantically partnered with a Black man and fully divest. You just can't do it. It doesn't matter how successful the guy is or whatever, because see, this is the thing that a lot of Black people don't want to admit. You can be in your household and things can operate a certain way. But what we don't want to acknowledge is that there is an entire culture, an entire community that will support that man if he does something to harm you, whether it's physically, emotionally, mentally, or financially. There's an entire community that will uphold him and will basically cover him, and they won't care about what happens to you. There's an entire community that will look at us and say, well, you know what, you're wrong for caring about yourself, because you should designate all of your time, energy, and resources towards the collective. Okay? And that's how I feel about a lot of these conversations that have taken place for years and some as recently as today, where you have people that pretty much say, well, these other groups of men are evil. You have to understand something. A true divester understands the nature of men. Okay, men operate in a way where they want to subjugate any and everyone around them. We understand that. But I want to put this in terms that maybe will be relatable to some of you, right? So, if some of you deal with drug dealers, right? Why would you deal with the street dealer when you can get with the supplier? And that's the situation we're in as Black women. Why would we deal with the men who are at the bottom of the totem pole when we have access to the men who actually make decisions that could be beneficial to us individually, right? And then for those of you who want to advocate for Black women, who could benefit Black women as a whole. Why would you do that? And the other thing is that we have to stop putting ourselves in the crosshairs of these fights between men. Okay? Do you understand that colonialism was a fight between men? So you had one group of men who were in this place where they had lots of land and resources. And then you had another group of men who had firepower. They fought. One group of men lost, and so they and their women and children were enslaved. The other group of men won, and so they collected the spoils of war. And I'm sure that's going to be an uncomfortable comment for a lot of you, but that's just the reality. But colonialism, in terms of the acquisition of resources and how it happened, has nothing to do with Black women. Unfortunately, in many cases, women and children often end up being the spoils of war. But let's talk about these different patriarchal systems. Because we know, right, like in the Western world, as many advances as women have made, In the Western world, many of the lawmakers and judges are white men. Those of you who live in parts of the world where you are in parts of Asia, and we know Asia is a vast continent, the majority of the judges and politicians and other lawmakers are Asian men. And we see what's happening with Asian men. The next major fight, the next major war between men will be between the Asian man and the white man, right? Because Asian men have access to resources and they have people power, and white men have the gunfire and they have the money. So that's going to be the next major war, world war, right? But if you look at patriarchal systems, and just let's look at the whole world. What part of the world allows women the right to vote? What part of the world allows women to have inheritance rights? So if you have a member of your family and they leave you something in a will, right? What part of the world ensures that some male member of the family can't take away what was left to you by inheritance? What part of the world allows women to own property? What part of the world has something called the Retirement Equity Act, right? Which means that if your spouse dies and they don't make a pension designation, you can't be snaked out of that pension benefit. What part of the world says, okay, if your spouse is going to collect a pension, he can't get a penny of that money without ensuring that he provides you with a benefit if you outlive him, and requires that you take a waiver to a notary public who verifies your identity and ensures that you understand what you're doing if you sign away your right to that benefit. What part of the world allows women to have those type of rights? What part of the world protects women against female genital mutilation? What part of the world has laws in place to protect women against violence? What part of the world protects women against domestic violence? Where was it where you had Haitians who were leaving countries where they already had clemency and certain other protections, and they were trying to get into a certain country? And you had border agents looking at those Black men saying, "You're a piece of shit for using your women as a shield." Where was that at? Where was that at? What part of the world is attempting to protect reproductive rights for women? Reproductive rights cover a variety of things. So, for those of you who get it, which I would recommend that we all do this, but apparently some of you don't. But your well care exams, where you can go to the gynecologist, they check you out, they make sure everything is all right. They make sure everything is okay. They make sure you're not having any health issues. And you get that for free. If you want birth control, you can go places and you pretty much don't have to pay that much for it. What part of the world gives you those rights? And which patriarchal system authorized all of that? I'm just asking some questions. Which patriarchal system acknowledges that some of us have periods that are so heavy that it's an actual medical issue, and make sure that you have insurance so that you don't bleed to death when you go through childbirth. Make sure you don't bleed to death because you have had your periods for so long, right? That it's caused a medical problem for you. Which patriarchal system acknowledges, well, there's a small number of women who will have to have a blood transfusion because your periods are so fucking heavy. And this is why in that part of the world, women are not dying at 30 and 40 years old. What part of the world allows you that? What part of the world says, hey, if you have been raped or if you are a victim of incest, you do not have to carry the child of the motherfucker who violated you? What part of the world allows you to have access to a Plan B pill? Because a lot of y'all are out here fucking and sucking. Let's just be honest. What part of the world allows you to have access to a pill so that you can undo some fuck shit that you did because you were being irresponsible? What part of the world allows that? What part of the world says, hey, you know what? We understand that some women don't want to work outside of the home. You know, maybe you have children and or a husband, or maybe you just don't want to work outside of the house, so we're not going to give you difficulty about that. What part of the world allows you to do that? What part of the world has not made it illegal for women to drive? What part of the world makes it such that you can't be married to a man and he just leave you with nothing because he's found another bitch with a fatter ass and bigger titties? What part of the world allows that? What part of the world is having conversations about equal pay for equal work? What part of the world has something called an Equal Pay Act that says, well, hey, if you're a woman and you're just as qualified, you're just as skilled and talented as your male counterparts, we need to make sure that you are paid on the same scale? What part of the world allows that? Do you all understand that there are certain parts of the world where there's no such thing as a domestic violence law? There's no such thing as legal protections for women. If a man gets mad at you, he can do whatever the fuck he wants to you, and there's no such thing as a criminal prosecution. What part of the world has set age standards when it comes to statutory rape in marriage? So that you don't have grown men violating 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old girls. What part of the world has laws in place so that if a girl is violated, you can be sure that the motherfucker who violated her would be prosecuted? What part of the world allows that? Okay? See, people have all these conversations about being strategic, but then at the same time, they're working against themselves and other Black women. Why would you encourage Black women to align ourselves with men who exist in parts of the world where there are no legal protections for women, sweetheart, where you can't even get a driver's license? You're not legally allowed to drive. In parts of the world where they don't even have fucking sanitation. There's no such thing as having a bathroom in your house. So you live in these fucking slums, like in parts of Soweto and Johannesburg and all these other places, right? So if you have to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, it's a fucking communal bathroom. Do you know how many women and girls have been raped on their way to and from the fucking bathroom because they don't have a bathroom in their house? And there are no legal protections for them. Do you understand that that's part of the reason why certain diseases are running wild in some of those parts of the world? These women are being raped left and right, and there are no protections for them. Why in the fuck? And listen, for those of you who are from some of these places, you know what I'm saying? It's nothing personal, but you're from there. So you know you're from a fucking shithole, right? But why in the fuck would you usher black women in the direction of men who don't have enough infrastructure in place to make sure that their wives and their daughters and their mothers and their grandmothers and their aunts have a fucking bathroom in the house? So that they're not getting raped when they're getting up in the middle of the night when nature calls. Not to mention, you understand, like, diseases like cholera and dysentery are running rampant in some of these places that we're being ushered into? Those diseases are virtually non-existent in the Western world. So yes, of course, if you're looking at this through the lens of colonialism, which to me is a male identified viewpoint, right? You say, okay, so white men took everything that black men were in charge of and therefore they're evil. But again, those are wars between men, okay? If black men did not have anything in place to protect their assets, to protect their women and their children, that's not our problem. But why in the fuck would you be a person from the Western world and want to be led by men who don't have fucking electricity? Do you understand that in certain parts of the world, in some of these Naker-led parts of the world, they have what they call rolling blackouts? So if you don't live in a neighborhood that has a backup generator, then you may only get electricity once or twice a day. It's 9:23 p.m. here on the East Coast. I have lights. I have air conditioning. I have internet. If I lived in one of these Naker zones, I wouldn't have that. So for those of you who work at night, imagine coming home in the middle of the night, like this time of night, and there are no street lights. There are no lights. If you live in a house or a townhouse, you don't have like a porch light. There's no lights when you come into your place, so you don't know what the fuck you're walking into. Why would we want to be led by a patriarchy that doesn't even have something as basic as running water and electricity? So if you do have a bathroom in the house, you can't flush the fucking toilet. There's no running water. You can't wash your hands. You can't get in the shower or the tub to wash your ass because there's no running water. So you have to use a community bathroom and shower and be at risk for things like cholera and dysentery. Oh, and of course, you have to worry about being raped as you're going to take a fucking shit in the middle of the night. That's the patriarchy that we should uplift over these other people. Like, we shouldn't connect ourselves to the men who have the resources and the money. And not to say that these men are perfect, but you really want to live in a place where you don't have running water and electricity? Not to mention, Some women live in parts of the world where they don't have access to sanitary products. Okay, if you're a premenopausal woman, barring any medical issues, you're gonna have a period every few weeks. You want to live in a world where you can't get a tampon, a menstrual cup, a pad, whatever the fuck you use? Are you serious? Are you serious? And those of you supporting that, like if you work a 9 to 5 job, it's probably a white or Asian motherfucker that's signing your check. So you hate those men so much, so you're not gonna take your paycheck? Because if you don't want it, I'll take it. Okay? But you don't want your check? All these bills that you all are talking about passing. You want to protect Black women, you want to protect Black girls. Who are the judges? Or if you're going to go through the legislative process, who are the people in your state Congress or at the federal level, in DC? Who's the majority of the people who are going to have to agree to pass your bill? Who are you probably going to have to ask to sponsor and co-sponsor your bill? Who's in charge of the committees that will get the representatives or senators in line to pass your bill and to appropriate the necessary funding? Who are those people? Are they Black men? Are the majority of people in Congress Black men? The people over appropriations, are they Black men? Matter of fact, the people that make sure that your air conditioning or your heat works, are they Black men? The people who make sure you have running water and electricity, are they Black men? When you go to the grocery store and you can buy whatever it is you buy when you go to the store, the people supplying all of that stuff, are they Black men? Like that's a male identified talking point to say that because white men won the battle between white men and Black men, we should view them as evil. Because when they pass all of those laws that are beneficial to women, they don't put a color line on it. Okay, it's just that there are so many Black women who support Black men to our detriment that a lot of times, honestly, I'm sure those other people feel like it's not worth it to them to do anything to benefit us. How many times are they going to send police to a Black woman's house who's getting the shit rocked out of her for her to not cooperate, right, with the prosecutor before they just get to the point where they don't show up? But what the fuck are we talking about? White men are evil, non-Black men are evil. Okay, but are they evil? When you go to wash your hands and you turn the water on and the water is running, do you understand that Asian men had to go into Africa, like especially like East Africa and Central Africa, and build infrastructure like roads, do things to make sure that more people have access to electricity? Do you understand that when Europeans move to Africa, certain parts of Africa, and they build neighborhoods, they have to make sure that those neighborhoods are connected to a backup generator system so that the people have electricity all day, and they have to do other things to make sure that people have access to running water. Imagine not having running water in your house for a day or two. Not flushing your toilet for days at a time. That's disgusting. And I'm not saying that it's disgusting in terms of the people who have to live in those conditions, because you're not, if you're a woman there, you're not responsible for the environment that's been created for you. But I'm just talking about in terms of germs and contamination. That's fucking sick and disgusting. We wouldn't allow that here in the US. You understand, in those parts of our country where you have large numbers of homeless people, the city comes out at least once a day, from what I understand, and they do things to make sure that people aren't just using the bathroom in certain places and it's not being cleaned. And it's not just cholera and dysentery that people can get. I think people can get shit like what? Tuberculosis, hepatitis A. It's all types of shit. But that's the patriarchy you want to be connected with. So we don't want to be associated with the men who can provide certain things for us in terms of basic comforts that the average person in the Western world is accustomed to. Let's just be honest. Most of us are accustomed to running water and electricity and Wi-Fi and air conditioning when it's hot. Most of us would raise hell if we did not have all of those things. But we don't want to be connected to that, because these men were victorious in their battle against other men. So we're going to side with men who failed to protect their own assets. And do you all not understand that part of the reason, see, this is a conversation that people don't want to have, but part of the reason that so many Black men interracially date is because they want to connect themselves to the groups of people who have the power and the resources. Black men are extremely hypergamous, which is bitch made and bussy behavior for men, but they're extremely hypergamous. They want to connect their legacy and their fortunes to the winning team. And they do that through the men that are connected to these women that they align themselves with. But sweetheart, we're women. We sitting on a honey pot. And we're not using it appropriately. You got people walking around saying that non-Black men are not attracted to Black women. Are you serious? I don't know. Maybe some of you are just weird and awkward. But if you have a decent personality and you keep yourself together, getting a man that is quality and is going to treat you right is not a problem. You just have to know how to recognize who those men are. But what are we saying here? White men are evil because they had the firepower to overpower other groups of men. But then they used that to make sure that we have everything that we want and need, and to make sure that we have legal rights and protections. They make sure that it's not illegal for us to work if we want. And even like, say you go through a divorce, such as myself, I'm going through a divorce. All of the laws that are in place that protect me as a woman were laws that are being enforced by white men. Most of the time, any attorney that you get that's going to help you in cases such as the one that I'm going to have to go through, they're white men. All of the people doing medical research on the issues that affect Black women. So all of the doctors who are saying, okay, well, a lot of us as Black women are dealing with heart issues because we're overly stressed. Those are Black. Those are, they're advocating for Black women, but they're white men. They're white men. They're Asian men. And those are the men that we're supposed to hate. It's like, okay, I'm sorry that you lost all these wars hundreds of years ago, but today I can vote because of all these white judges that y'all are mad at. Today I can walk and exist freely and not be accosted. And if I am accosted, there's a phone number that I can call to make sure that I can get this raggedy ass motherfucker off my ass. As a matter of fact, I live like a block away from my local police department. Most of the people who work there are white men. Right beside them is a fire station. Most of the people who work there are white men. All of these people who are donating to causes that are beneficial to Black women, a lot of those people are white and Asian men. But those are the people that we're supposed to not like. And see, the funny thing is this. If you look at these so-called pro-Black men, right, who are putting together certain projects and movies and such, look at the people who are helping them. Most of their producers and directors and editors are white men. See, Black men know who to go to when they need money and resources. They're just trying to cut y'all off from the people who can actually help us. But I want us to think about that. Like, what are we saying when we say that Black women should be distrustful, more distrustful of other groups of men than we are Black men? I mean, if you're a woman who understands your femininity and you also understand how masculine energy works, you know, okay, that men can be treacherous. And you also understand that there are different levels of treachery. Black men are beastly. The way that they treat Black women is lower than animalistic, because even male animals are protective of their female partners. So Black men treat us in a way that is beyond beastly. But because we understand history, right? So we know about the racial disparities. But notice that white men were not able to do that on the same scale to other groups of people. Why? Because the men stepped up and said, well, no, you're not going to do this to our women and children. Black men bowed down, and that's just the truth. So just think about it. If white men are evil, then I want you all to say that you don't want to be able to vote. You don't want to be able to own property. You don't want to be able to inherit money and property. You don't want domestic violence protection. You don't want other laws to protect women. You support female genital mutilation. You don't think women should have reproductive rights. You don't like being able to go to the store and buy your products and things to keep you in line when you're going through your menstrual cycles. You don't want to be able to have medical protections, right? So you don't want to be able to go to the doctor and get your birth control or whatever if you use it. You don't want to be able to leave the house without a male member of your family. You don't want to be able to drive. You don't want running water. You don't want other forms of sanitation. You don't want electricity. As a matter of fact, you don't even want a bathroom in your house. You want to live in an area with hundreds and thousands of people where you're all using the same bathroom, and you want to live in a world where it's possible that on your way to the bathroom or on your way from the bathroom, you could get raped by men who know that they are HIV positive, they know they have herpes, and they know they have all these other diseases. You want all of those things because you feel like you're supposed to hate white men, Asian men, and all these other non-black men. If you're ready to say that, then I want you to give up your citizenship to the United States or whatever part of the Western world you live in, and I want you to go live in one of these God-forsaken hellholes. Okay? Anyway, I hope you guys have a great night. Thank you for everyone who is here watching live or everyone who will catch the playback. Hey, Helen. Hey, Zizi. Hey, Aisha. Hey, Choosing Better. Hey, Niece. Hello to everyone in the chat. I wanted to keep this super short because, like I said, I know it's the middle of the week. People have a lot to do, but I just want to put that out there. And I want you all to understand that those are some of the things that you give up when you say that you do not support the white man's patriarchal system, because we have all of these rights because most of the people in the position to say, okay, well, yes, we think women should be able to have these things, most of the people in those positions are white men. Oh, and also the other thing you don't want, right? You want to work a job, right? Where all of the men make more money than you, even if you're more qualified and you have more experience. Those are the things that you want because you hate white men, right? Anyway, we'll talk soon. Bye.